Elaine, I believe you're on mute.
Hello. Hey, Zachariah.
Hi, Elaine.
Rob, Brad,
Hi.
John.
Hey,
How are you guys?
lovely. How are you?
Cold.
Love it.
Elaine, is that you on the 259-1372 number? Okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the equipment doesn't allow me to have camera and
Sure.
my. One day.
Okay, well, it's 10 minutes after the hour, almost 10 minutes after the hour. Elaine, do you know if we are expecting anyone else?
Kelly's actually here, so we have Rob, Kelly, you, John, Brad, myself right now. Let's see, Lonnie. I know Sheik had a conflict and Lacey had a conflict.
Okay.
Those two.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. We do have a quorum now.
Yep.
So, although I am no longer with the county, technically I'm still the chair of the meeting, so or the chair of the board. So I'll go ahead and get us started. But Elaine, I want you to certainly feel empowered to facilitate as much as you want or need or feel comfortable doing. But just for formality's sake, I'll open up the meeting now officially. So it's September 9th at 3:08 p.m. and I'll call to order the meeting of the Grand County Economic Development Advisory Board. We are streaming on YouTube, so this meeting is live and open to the public. And to get us started, I'll just say that it's nice to see many of you, at least digitally, as I haven't seen many of you for a long time. And I hope you all are well and safe, and that your families are well and safe. And so we've got several updates from Elaine today, and I think this is a good opportunity for us to talk about, the evolving landscape of economic development in Grand County. And so we've got a number of things on the agenda, and then, a lot of opportunity to just check in and talk openly about how we move forward. So with that said, let's see, because this is a little different from a county council meeting or city council meeting where, all the participants are fairly well-known entities. In case we do have folks from the public watching, if we could just do a quick round of introductions. So just, name and who you represent if you represent an organization. So I'll go ahead and go first. Zachariah Levine. I am not representing the Synergy Company in this group, but recently switched over to the Synergy Company from Grand County, and so I'll pass it off to Elaine at this point, and maybe I'll just call on folks to keep it efficient.
That's good. Elaine Gisler, what am I? I'm the Director of Economic Development and Tourism here in Grand County today.
And Brad?
Yeah, Brad Vertosh. I'm representing venturecapital.org. I'm the founder there. However, I'm retired, and I'm also a homeowner in Moab.
All right. And Rob?
I'll say just resident of Moab.
Okay. Kelly?
What was that?
Kelly?
Kelly.
I'm the service area manager for Southeast area of Utah for the Department of Workforce Services.
Thank you. And Dane?
Hey, I got to find the unmute here. Yeah, I represent Sacred Earth One LLC, and we are a private lender to commercial properties here in Grand County and San Juan County.
Thanks. Lonnie?
Yeah, so I work with Zions Bank, and then I'm also Vice President of Chamber of Commerce.
Great. John?
John Knight, part owner in Arches Vacation Rentals and utility scale renewable energy developer.
All right. And I see somebody calling in from 259-1371, which is really funny because that was my old office line. I almost almost stumbled there in terms of who that might be. But if you could just unmute yourself and introduce yourself.
Yep. So you know who this is. This is Mila, and I just took over for Zechariah as planning director of Grand County. I'm probably not going to be coming to a lot of these meetings, but I wanted to join you guys at least here for the first regrouping.
Great. Thanks, Mila. Nice to have you in the meeting with us.
Yeah.
And 259-1368. That's also a Grand County number.
That might be just a citizen.
Sorry, I was muted, but this is Olivia Holmes. I'm the planning and zoning assistant at Grand County working with Mila.
Great. Well,
Great.
Nice to have both of you in the meeting. Okay, so at this point, if anybody has a conflict of interest or something to disclose, ex parte communication, now would be the time.
Okay.
Okay. Do citizens to be heard? Okay. And Elaine, if you, I presume you're controlling the Zoom meeting?
Yeah, well, sort of, yeah.
Okay.
Mallory's on, she's made me the co-host, so we're gonna see.
So just, if you, I presume there's nobody in the waiting room, waiting to speak.
No, it doesn't look like it.
Okay. Okay, do we have any minutes to approve this?
I didn't send anything out.
Okay, so we won't have any minutes to approve at this meeting. We should just check to make sure that if we don't have minutes from the last meeting that we held, and I can't remember when that was, probably sometime in July.
Yeah, I think the last meeting minutes I have are from the 15th of July.
Okay.
And I think I sent those out like right after that meeting.
I'm sure that you did. You've been doing a great job of sending them out immediately. Let's just make sure to keep, we'll do in the next meeting, we'll approve the minutes from July 15th and from today.
We'll make sure I send those out for the next meeting. So,
cool.
Okay.
So next up on our agenda is a series of discussion items. The first on that list is frankly just a check-in with each other about what we're all seeing in the local economy, and if there are any valuable insights to share with the group, and in particular Elaine. Let's try to maybe keep this to 15 minutes to start, and if the conversation is still robust at that point, we can keep talking, but just so we don't feel a place.
well, Zachariah, I'd like to start off with a couple of things. First of all, we created a Grand County, Utah Economic Development Facebook page. So if you can go to that and encourage people to go to that, we're going to be posting a lot of information on that Facebook page. We would love you to go there, and then if you've got anything that you all would want us to put up, please get to us. Also on the Grand County, Utah site, we took the economic development page and broke it out, and we're adding more content. We just recently put up the occupancy report for the year, so as soon as I receive that, I will post that, and then I'll be putting some visa view information up there, and we're just going to try to provide content that will be helpful to people that are possibly looking at, coming here to our community. The Shop in Utah second round for grant funding got approved, and the applications, Friday's the day when everybody can submit their applications, and again, it's going to be on a first come, first serve. So we just sent out a constant contact. We sent out a communication on that with the information. If you're not on constant contact and we don't have you haven't received it, please email me and we will get you up, put your address into our database so we can send that information out. So we're trying to really focus on, putting up their information that will be relevant, that will be updated, and Melissa is working on the social media. So we updated the Do It Like a Moab Local, and we split it into two different sections. We have one section for the visitor, if you go to the homepage, and the second section is going to be for visitor or business resources. So we're really trying to ramp up anything that has to do for the local community. We're going to try to push businesses to go to that website so that they can find needed information, any information regarding upcoming grant opportunities. We're just going to try to keep getting as much out there to the local business community as soon as possible. And we will have a new video that a 30-second video that we are going to be putting out from the Travel Council, and it's going to be called Think Moab. Think Moab for recreation, Think Moab for family, Think Moab for business. So it's kind of like coming here to Moab, you can have it all. So we're hoping to expand. I just talked to some of the Utah.com today, and we're going to see if they can get that video out there, because I think if we can sort of associate family, recreation, and business, we might get people thinking now that you can work remotely, anything's possible. So as long as you have a high-speed internet connection. So that's pretty much it for my updates.
Great. I am thrilled to see, all the activity that's emerging out of the sort of reformulated, reshaped economic development office. Is there, one thing I might note, and this is something we struggled with, or that I struggled with, is, the reality that Moab is the community's namesake, really. Anytime you sort of get beyond governmental organizations, and certainly our area. I know your office does a lot in the realm of like search engine optimization. You maybe just put a note to like think about how we can better link the namesake of Moab to like the Grand County economic development activities that are happening. I don't know how easy or hard that will be, but it was something I could never really gracefully accomplish.
Okay, well, we're open. Just the best thing to do would be if you have any ideas, any suggestions, recommendations, please email me, because we have a very quick, I work like 24 hours a day. So I'll be picking up emails. Just send me whatever information, and we will try to, to react to it as quickly as we can. I mean, we definitely, Zachariah, you certainly did have challenges in economic development, so I can appreciate all that you did. We have a long way to go with how we're going to take this community from where we are to move forward. And a lot of those things that I see are things that are not within our purview to change. We have to enlist a lot of help from leaders of the city and the county. So I think the stronger that this board becomes, and we become a voice for what we see in the future, I think that's very important for us to collaborate, to work, to support each other, and really see what we can do to help make improved changes in our community.
Okay, so feel free, at this point, we're in an open discussion, so feel free to jump in. Dane, you've raised your hand, so I'll pass it to you. But at this point, I'm gonna just sort of open it up, and if you feel compelled to jump in, go ahead.
Yeah, Elaine, so the best email to get you is at the Discover Moab.
Yeah, you can still send it to director@discovermoab.com. I have all the emails come in that way. And Jasmine just joined the meeting. Yeah, so send anything over, any questions, anything that you might want to forward. I would appreciate it.
All right. Yeah, I mean, in terms of what I've witnessed here in the local economy, it's kind of a mixed bag of the good, the bad, and the ugly, so I don't have a whole lot to add on that, but I'm curious to hear from the rest of you.
Zachariah?
Go ahead, Brad. Yeah.
I don't think we can let
Yeah,
Dane off the hook that easily.
Just a little aside, I've been nosing around when we've talked about people working here and training people here to work for, say, the tech companies on the Wasatch Front and different companies along the Wasatch Front. It's become apparent to me from my discussions with various people that, for example, Silicon Slopes is really trying very hard to figure out what their role is with rural Utah. They have a real desire to go after all that old U-Star money that's still hanging out there, that's going to be used on the rural areas eventually, depending on this COVID thing turns out. And they were wined and dined, for example, by the Carbon County Council about a month ago. They brought them down to Carbon County and feted them well and took them out to play golf and all this kind of stuff to try to get them to be more involved with Carbon County. There's a program that a gentleman that I know with Accelerant is trying to do down in Carbon County in terms of training people. And Carbon County is just real anxious to do something, right? Well, Silicon Slopes is also really anxious to do something, but they don't know what to do. They kind of know what to do, but they don't. And the reason they don't is that they've got too much on their plate. They don't have enough staff. And even though they got plenty of money, or compared to other organizations, they're really having a hard time figuring out what's going on. And I have a former associate of mine that is with Silicon Slopes, and he and I have been talking about, as well as VCO, venturecapital.org, about putting together a proposal or outline to run by you guys to sort of formalize really getting on the ball to get those people recruited. Because I think if we can tie up with those and start working with them, we can build a case to have people want to be trained that are here. And I think if we can get Kelly working together and Utah State Leanne, so that we really can figure out how this is all going to unfold from a training perspective and from a recruiting perspective of employees, I think there's a real opportunity to do that. So I've been fooling around, and I'm going to try to get a little one-pager out to everybody to take a look at in the near future. But I think that's a real opportunity because people are trying to figure out what to do. And it fits really well with your drive tourism thing. People can drive into Moab.
Well, Brad, this office does a lot of fan tours where we, bring people in from all over the world, and whether they're journalists or whatever
Right.
they are. We definitely know how to wine and dine and showcase our area. So if you're thinking of bringing someone here, a group here, we can discuss it, and we will put on the best show possible.
That's what I figured.
We will not disappoint, trust me.
I think we can just blow everybody's doors off, right?
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
and when I was talking to my friend, and there's literally only 6 people that work mostly full-time for Silicon Slopes, they were trying to figure out what to do. It was clear that Carbon County didn't know what to do either. I mean, they're scrambling, right? And I think that we can show a much better organized, because of your fan tour experience, for example, better way to recruit. And I think we can really blow people's doors off that way. And I think it's just a matter of getting it done. And now's the great time to do it. Hopefully you'll have a report on the governor's office giving you the $95,000 that we asked for. And, but anyway, that's sort of my little thing I've been nosing around with.
Can I just ask a clarifying question, Brad?
You bet.
That sounds interesting, and I'm just trying to, understand what that would mean. So Silicon Slopes, they're a nonprofit that helps train people to code, essentially.
Well, it's a really good question, Rob. Silicon Slopes kind of works on 2 sides. They've done an awful lot with the helping entrepreneurs through ideation, but they also are tied in. They've taken over Utah Technology Council, and they're working with bigger tech companies. And up until recently, the bigger tech companies, all startups here that grew into big companies, have been funding it. And I say recently because they've been pulling back. And there's been some controversy. There's been some issues that have really sort of put Silicon Slopes on the ropes on a couple of issues, and trying to get them figured out what to do. But the one thing they do really, really well is they can get all, and they don't have time to do stuff. But what they do have time to do is to say, Bill, talk to these people. Ryan, talk to these people. Josh, talk to these people. And they can open some doors so that we can get into the HR departments or the CEO suite if we need to, places like Qualtrics and Domo and Pluralsight.
So Brad, what would be a
and
use case for what would be like a use case or implementation case where they would work with Moab? I don't understand how.
They're not going to be able to work with, I don't think they have the bandwidth to initiate a program where they can really track the training and do facilitating getting this done. It's going to have to be done on the local level, but what they can facilitate is they can facilitate opening doors. So number one, we can do or get someone to do that they can help pay for, someone to do an analysis of, does this make any sense? What are the barriers to not come to Moab? Are there some excitement about Moab? Can we get in an interview 10 tech companies and see if this idea makes any sense at all? They can set up the meetings. They can get us in the door to find out if what we're planning on doing makes any sense at all. And then the next step is, if it does, going into an implementation phase. But I think they can be very helpful in opening doors. That's about all. And they want to do something, but they don't have the bandwidth to implement. They have the bandwidth to open some doors.
Maybe we should put a small committee together to have a meeting with the principals of the company to let them know that we're anxious. So if 2 of you are interested to go and meet with them or have a call with them or something, so we can sort of flush out, to me, I think that would be what to do.
Yeah, I view this as kind of a 3-step process. One is to put together sort of a quick and dirty overview of what we're trying to accomplish. And there's a couple of steps. One step is what we're trying to do make any sense? Will it be received well? Does it make any sense? Can we find out from Kelly? Can we find out from whoever else we need to, what our capacities are? And does it make any sense to try this? So we interview people, interview HR departments, find out what the requirements are, find out what's needed, find out if there's any interest at all from these companies to do this, to either allow people to move down and work from home so they relocate to Moab, or can we train people for jobs that can stay in Moab and work for these companies, or can we train people in Moab that can find employment subsequently with these companies? I think there's 3 ways to look at it. I think one of the things we want to do is we would really hope that we can employ people that are here in Moab and they'll stay in Moab and work remotely. Also, I think we hope that we can attract some people that say, hey, you mean to tell me, Mr. Boss, I could work in Moab? I'll do that in a heartbeat if I can work that. All I need is this, right? And so we bring people in that are high value, that are making good money, that move to Moab and help diversify the Moab economy. I think, ultimately, if those things it can work, and I think we do a sort of a research project to find that out real quick. And I think we can get somebody to pay for that research project. Then I think we go to the next step of fam tours, bring people in and get them down here and really sell them. Because now they've already been bought in, they've already been talking to us, they've already committed to say, yeah, I think this makes sense. If they say, no, it doesn't make sense, now we have to sit back and say, okay, now what do we do? How do we is it an infrastructure issue we got to deal with? Is it just not going to work? What else do we have to do? Do we have to focus our efforts elsewhere than off the Wasatch Front? But I think that and I think that even Gced would put together a decent 2-3 page proposal about this is what we're trying to do. This is what we want to accomplish. It's going to cost us X to gather the data. And the only reason I ask for extra money from other sources is so that we have more money to spend down here. Can this be done without spending any money? Of course it can. But geez, if people have got money to give, let's get it. And I think Gced would fund a little research project to find out if Moab could be a real good test case to take the Wasatch Front and put it in the rural areas, because they're really looking at this. And this has been a discussion. Kelly's probably got even a better update to that. The discussion that's been going on to how do we get the Wasatch Front to work with the rural areas and to move jobs. That's an issue that I've been hearing from Gced. It's an issue I've been hearing from other sources, that this is something they really want to do, but they don't know how to do it, to be perfectly honest with you. At least I don't think so.
Okay, that was a lot to take in. So let's step back a little bit and just sort of revisit the flow of this conversation. I think, we started off talking about local economic conditions. Brad, you just presented, one concept for a longer term economic development strategy with some, near-term components. Before we get too lost in the discussion of future actions and future priorities, let's revisit the question of local economic conditions right now on the ground. Dane, you said, hey, I'm seeing the good, the bad, and the ugly out there. I presume that means, something like what I'm witnessing, which is, hey, we've got some businesses that are going out of business, right? One restaurant in particular comes to mind for me that just announced it was going out of business. We've got some outfitters that look like they're doing quite well, if not better than in previous years. If looking at a short time period, not necessarily the full 2020 year. Some businesses that are just managing to sort of hang on. But are you, or is anyone else in this group seeing a pattern as to, who's doing okay and why, or who's not doing okay, and is there something we can do to, support them?
Well, does anyone have an example of a restaurant that's doing better or doing well? So I would imagine no.
Rob, this isn't exactly germane, but I live in another resort community called Midway. Okay. And I'm seeing, because of how they were able to handle COVID, one restaurant in particular it just can't keep up. I mean, they're serving 300 to 400 meals a day. And they'd normally be in the 100 meal if they were lucky, right? And one that I thought was going to go out of business for sure says they're finally doing really well. And part of it has to do with the Heber Valley, for example, has exploded with local tourism. Our local car dealer, one of our local car dealers up here, has had record months, June, July, and August in car sales. And they've run out of inventory, and partially because of supply chain interruptions, but they're doing extraordinarily well. And now, is that the rest of the country? No. Utah happens to be doing well, and people have disposable income to do stuff. And I think that you're seeing more and more people do that local traveling. It won't make up for what's been lost, but it may help.
So Brad, to keep this focused, what do you think it is that's leading to that particular restaurant doing really well? Are there certain behaviors that they're exhibiting? Is there a model that can be replicated here?
Yes, to the answer to the last question. What they've done is that they had a very successful restaurant here in Midway for years, and they sold it. And it was based on the idea that you went up and you ordered, and then you picked up your food on a tray and took it to your table, right? So they had no real wait staff component kind of in the deal. And they did very, very well. They sold it. And then their son started a food truck. And then from that food truck, he went to a standalone operation in addition to the food truck that was always from the get-go, while it was designed to have people come, they'd order, you pick up your food, you take it to your table. There's no wait staff, okay? And they are very, very, very good. I mean, the meals are really good gourmet Southwest, okay? And it's this Mex-Tex kind of stuff that's high end, and it's really great. It's called Lola's Street Kitchen. But they've always had takeout right from the get-go. And their takeout business has just exploded.
Okay, so we're talking about some takeout dynamics, right? And so, I think that's the thread that I hear is an effective takeout model. Elaine, do you have any updates? Do you know, has the city council approved the policy that had to do with allowing more like outdoor sidewalk cafe style seating?
I haven't heard that. I know they were going to discuss it, but I haven't heard that was approved. But I can check into it.
Okay, because that's one area where I see, we did not jump on that fast enough. The resort communities that I have seen excelling, reports from Telluride and Jackson.
I agree.
Reporting record figures for visitation over the summer. One of the primary avenues to supporting their restaurants has been, greatly expanding the outdoor seating, and we really have not seen much of that in Moab. There's only a few exceptions, but that's something to think about.
Yeah, Zachariah, I would echo, like, that to me is such an obvious thing we got to do, like, now. Like, the streets, some of the streets we have are so wide. I mean, look at 100 South, all the restaurants there. I mean, so wide, it wouldn't have any impact on traveling. So, I mean, we're not the forum to do that, but if anybody has, I don't know, whatever, I mean, you probably know who the person maybe city council's already on this, I'm sure, but that needs to happen.
Well, I know the city council was discussing it, nor Shepard was tasked with exploring this policy, but I haven't followed up with Nora and haven't seen anything, as to
No,
a vote on the matter.
I haven't either.
But that's
I haven't
something
either.
that, it'd be great to check in on. And what this group is really set up to do is to provide, advice to the legislative bodies. And so, I think
The city
we
is
could
actively working on that, and it has not come back to the city council, but pretty sure the city council directed staff to put it together. And I watch every city council meeting. I'm pretty sure it'll be back. It hasn't been back in the last couple, but I do know that they're working on it actively to make it happen. It's called some.
Okay, so I think, one thing I can do is reach out to Nora and say, hey, would you be ready for the Economic Development Advisory Board to submit a letter of support for that policy? John, what are you seeing in lodging?
I think it's the same as what we saw, at least on the Airbnb nightly rental side, which is, I think, different than, hotel, motel. We're seeing pretty high occupancy rates for September and October. We've got, I think I'm running, my personal properties are like at 93% occupancy this month. Of our property management portfolio, we're at like 75 to 80%. Rates are still down from where we want them to be. But I think that was probably based upon our occupancy, probably just a little bit of a delayed reaction from our side to increase those rates. So I think we're seeing demand on our side on the lodging, which is great for us.
And are you getting much communication from your guests about, just their experiences traveling here, or like, challenges they're still facing?
No, not
No.
really. I think that the people that we have coming are just excited to be out of their houses.
Yeah.
I wonder if we've benefited at all from the Colorado fires, maybe bringing more people here than that would go to the Western Slope.
Something I forgot to add, we just started our very small marketing campaign in Colorado and Utah. So we're running television, we're running social media, OTAs. So we've got a presence out there for the month of September and about the first 2.5 weeks in October, hoping to inspire drive markets. So that just started on Monday.
Yeah, that's great. So it sounds like your budget is picked up, Elaine. Like, can you share any update on that? Whether
I had to cut like $1.5 million out of the marketing budget. So we're only spending about 200 and maybe 240 between September and October, which is, nothing. And we're going to see what comes in for TRT at the end of this month. Usually comes in about the third week of the month. So we'll have a better gauge on that. But we're trying to be conservative because, we've had no advertising since March 17th, nothing. So we were dormant all these months. So, we've had nothing but what little we could do from the office. But, the television and everything that we put together should really help to engage all of Utah and all of Colorado. And hopefully that'll, we'll see people coming.
Well, so a couple things to add to that, Elaine. One is, as probably everyone would guess, the bulk of our guests are, within drive distance. So it's Phoenix, Denver, Salt Lake. That's
right.
Kind of what's going to be interesting to me to see, and I don't know if we thought about how we market this, but our slow season of middle of November through President's Day weekend, I'm curious how many people will come here, because kids are homeschooled now, or they can do online learning from all over the place, and they're just going to say, let's go to Moab for a couple weeks and hang out there. A little bit warmer, we can get out, do things, be more independent. So from our standpoint on our property management business, we're coming up with a marketing plan to try to capture some of those potential guests to see if we can boost our revenue and visitations in those months.
Traditionally, we market for the shoulder season, which is December, January, and February. But the marketing committee met, and because we've had nothing for months, felt that we needed to get a kickstart to hopefully get travelers to come for, you know, when the weather is good in September, October, and the first half of November. So we'll see how things go. But traditionally, John, we're kind of on the same page. We've run marketing then to inspire, you know, to kick off the early part of the season. The other thing is that we're losing a couple of quick facts. We had roughly 1,400 bus tours come through last year. This year we have 0 bus tours. We had $10 million, I think I may have mentioned this, in international spend, visa spend just in Grand County. This year, nothing. So we've lost over $10 million worth of visa revenue. We're not getting the bus tours. So we have to do something to hopefully get the drive market, which is like a 600-mile, you know, radius, where we can hopefully get people to come here. We're sending out about 600 travel planners a week, which is really terrific because people are interested in knowing more about Moab. So we're mailing those out, and our hits to the website, where we were down significantly, you know, during the COVID months, we're now we're picking up subtraction. So things are looking more positive, and Love Communications, who's our media company of record, is really working with us and studying all the stats, and we're really focusing on how we can jumpstart, you know, bringing revenue back into the community beginning September.
Elaine, historically, you know, the Travel Council has done all of the heavy lifting for advertising in this community, with local businesses, you know, contributing very little to nothing in terms of a match. Is there a way to, I mean, I realize this year, you know, businesses are going to have even less, you know, working capital to put towards advertising when they really have not had to do much in the past anyways, you know, but is there a way, you know, is there some sort of like cost match or cost sharing mechanism used where, you know, the Travel Council is like the kind of tip of the spear, and you know, businesses that are capable can kind of buy into it, or, you know, a system where like you could kind of help set up like a block of advertising that, like, you know, a group of businesses buy into, and so they're sort of stretching their own dollars if they're not doing that on their own already.
Not this year, but I think we're going to start some sort of a grant program. I'm going to talk to my board about it, about implementing. You know, we give grant funding to people that want to bring events here during the shoulder season, but frankly, we have no events that come here December, January, February. People just aren't bringing events. So rather than sort of earmark that money for events during shoulder season, it might be beneficial for, and that's what my proposal will be to my board, is to take those funds and turn those into grant funds for local businesses. I mean, you've got, you know, Colin Fryer, Red Cliffs that does a lot of marketing. You've got Sorrel River that does marketing. You've got some of the bigger, you know, the outfitters that do marketing. But for the most part, it's all reliant on the Travel Council, as you had indicated, to push, you know, travelers to think about coming here. So but I think next, and if we can do it, depending on, we're going in to talk about budgets, depending on what the budget advisory board will allow when we set the budget, that'll determine what type of funding we might be able to count on to implement something like that next year. So essentially, we would offer a grant program for them to market, and we would match the funds similar to what we do for event grant funding.
Okay. Before we pivot to a quick update from Elaine on the SB 95 funding and how we want to put that to work in alignment with the budget that we proposed, is there anything else that folks want to share with regards to the local economic conditions, Rob?
Yeah,
And
good
Kelly?
news. I just saw today on Facebook that the Mark has a co-working space. Who knew?
Has a what?
Co-working
Oh,
space. They just
cool.
launched with 5 spots available for $75 a month or $10 for a drop-in, and you get your internet there. And yeah, just another little anecdotal piece. Friends of friends are going to be 4 people are going to be moving here from San Francisco, and telecommuters, sick of everything living there and don't need to live there anymore to work. So I mean, I know at least a bunch of them are climbers, so they've been coming to Moab in the past, but I think it's always nice when people from a big city say they'll want to come here, and hopefully they'll bring some spending power and buy a lot of stuff here. But they're going to look for places, and that's going to be, I think, the big the hurdle, right? Is having places for people that want to come here. I mean,
That's fantastic. So can you send Elaine the link to that? I don't know. I had heard sort of some conversations about that being a possibility, but hadn't heard that it has actually come to fruition. But that's something that we definitely want to advertise with the Mark's approval, of course. And I don't mean advertise in a huge way, but just make known around the community, because it's not like it's a huge facility.
Yeah.
But if you could get Elaine maybe in touch, or if we can make that connection happen, that would be good.
Yeah, they have a website, actually, a link on there that has information about it, and like a brochure and everything all ready to go. So
cool.
Okay. What I'd like to see before we get further, I'd like to see for next year, because there will be funding. I'm guessing there'll be co-working funding available, space funding next year through the state. And I think if there is, I know that Wabi Sabi had talked about possibly having co-working space there. But I think we have to encourage these people that might be thinking of it to really get a plan together so that they're not scrambling at the last minute. If they have a design, if they have something, a business plan written up, that as soon as the state opens that up for 2021, that they've got plans ready that they could submit to get the funding. So, I mean, this year there was only $250,000 for grant funding total for the whole state. So, but I would imagine there'll be hopefully more next year. But I think if we can encourage whoever you might know to put a design, a cost, put a business plan together, then, and I would even push to try to see what I could do from where I am to get some sort of funding opportunity, grant funding opportunity for them.
I sent the link there in the chat for everybody.
Cool.
Okay. Unless someone else had, Kelly, you wanted to mention something.
So there are changes to the unemployment insurance programs, multiple programs. partly because Congress has not acted yet, as far as I know, maybe today, who knows, on any kind of extension or any kind of changes to the CARES Act that would impact unemployment. Likely locally, those who are self-employed are probably being impacted more than others. But there's also, as everyone knows, the additional $600 amount has gone away. The president's executive order allows for up to $300 additional dollars out of FEMA funding per week for people. That's not in place yet. There's still programming to do. The funding hasn't hit the state yet. And it looks like, so $200 comes out of FEMA funding, as I understand it, and then another 100 is kind of an option, and the state would need to decide whether or not to do that. And at this point, I don't believe that Utah is planning to add that extra 100. So, and that's a fairly short-term amount of money. I think people are also now required to do job search across the board, and that hasn't been the case for everyone. So there's probably going to be impacts to that locally. At probably not the greatest of times, honestly, in terms of our season. So,
You know, that has me thinking, Lonnie in particular, you have raised the concern about, you know, COVID's impacts really hitting us in the winter. And that we probably haven't even really seen the full effect of such a challenging year. Have you or Dane or anyone else sort of caught wind that you know, there are some businesses that are sort of on the precipice, and you know,
No, I really haven't.
Name names or anything, but
I haven't really seen anything that's alarming yet. I have just in the last couple of weeks had more interest in different types of line of credits, but that could or could not be. I mean, that's a pretty common thing this time of year anyways. So it's kind of hard to say right now.
yeah. Okay. Okay, well, Elaine, do you want to fill us in on SB 95?
Yes, I invoiced the Gced for the $95,833. I had to trim the funds back just a bit because it came out to that specific number. And I don't know if I can share this or not. Let me see. Can you see this?
Yeah, got it.
So we've got 4,000.
Yeah, but could you zoom in a little bit, Elaine?
Yeah, let me see if I can. Is that any better?
Yep.
Yeah.
So we have 4,000 for the Vista, and I was approved to get a Vista who will probably start. I've got some applications I'm reviewing, but I'm thinking we'll get them started probably in January to start the year off. But anyway, so this funding has been approved, and this was basically the breakout that we had discussed months ago. So I just took this, made a little bit of an adjustment to meet the 95,833, and it's approved. We're just waiting to get the check back from Gced. And Zechariah, does that go right to the county? That 95,833 will go right to the county?
It should, yeah.
Okay, in a special fund?
Well, you'll have to manage it as a grant with Quinn.
Okay, so I'll talk to him.
But there should be a fund already set up to receive that. There's a
Okay.
code for, you know, revenue and expenses for it was called, I think, Bear before, but you know, you just use that same line.
Okay, So this is basically how it's broken out. I know we had a little bit more detail on the original sheet that we had, but this is what I submitted, and this is what was approved.
Elaine?
Uh-huh.
I just want to chime in with one tidbit. Sort of, I heard from a friend of mine who has had Vistas in the past work for his organization. He said it was just a bit surprising the kind of the depth of applicants wasn't very large. And he says his advice kind of with this other organization was, if you find someone who looks qualified and seems good for what you want to do, to really make them an offer and move quickly. He said a lot seemed like English was their second language, and didn't have good writing skills he was looking for someone to help with grant writing and things like that. Just he was saying there's a lot of people, but not all of them are it's a wide quality range of quality, I guess, is from his perspective.
Right. Well, I got 4 applications, and I would say 2 of them look like they could be possibilities, but I have to interview them. So I'm going to do that. And I, too, want to find someone that has the ability to, the one person's application looks like they could be a good fit, because I don't want to waste time trying to find someone and then trying to teach them everything. That sort of defeats our purpose. They have to hit the ground running with everything that we have to do. So I want to make sure that we have a qualified person that doesn't need a whole lot of hand holding as we go through this process, and has the ability to understand grants, look for grants, and really help our business community. That's the goal. So I'll keep you posted.
Sounds good.
And then I think, let's see here, oops. I was trying to see if I could, all right. I thought I had the breakdown. I know we have this breakdown. I have to see if I can find it on another. So we're approved. We had funds that we had set aside for the annual business summit, which we have to discuss. And I'm going to pull a committee together to discuss where that's going to go. We talked about the GAIN event. We set a little bit of money aside for GAIN, and then for business loans to help with trainings for employees, business loan scholarships, and which would include USU, and I think we had all mapped this out. I'll have to go back and look for the original breakdown that's more in detail.
So Elaine, what would you need, or how would you like for this group to sort of provide guidance on the disbursement of these funds? You sent out an application.
Yeah, I did.
For us to review. You probably haven't gotten much feedback on that.
No, I haven't gotten any, and I'm working with the Southeast Utah Association of Local Governments. I've contacted them because I'm asking them for, their input. But the application that I have here is, a couple of the other counties are using a very similar application, but I think they would fill out the application for their business grant funding. And I think when we looked at it based on what we were allocating, we could fund 3 different, I think it was three different businesses. And I'll go back and get the breakdown. I guess the question is, it doesn't look like CARES. I don't know if we're going to get any of the CARES funding that was allocated to Grand County. I haven't heard anything about that, which other communities are starting to allocate CARES funding because it has to be allocated and, I guess, spent before the end of the year. But I have not I haven't seen anything or heard anything from Grand County. Let me see if I can find this other form. And I really think our businesses do need some additional support, because this funding isn't going to do a whole heck of a lot to help them. I mean, we're talking about a drop in the bucket.
So can I ask a question? So, Elaine, I looked at the application, but I'm not clear what the criteria are, and maybe it's probably because I've been something somewhere. I was just wondering what the award criteria would be for these applications. It says something about first come, first served basis, in which case I'm just unclear about what the criteria would be.
I think that's for us to decide how we want to determine who will get grant funding. I guess, you know, we can determine if it's first come, first serve, and if it seems like a valid request. But I would also add that I would expect, I'm going to document everything with all the detail, but I would expect that those people would have to come back. It would be mandatory that they return in 6 to 12 months to give us a report on how that funding impacted their business, positive or negative. I think because we want to supply that, you know, provide that update to Gced. So I want to make sure that we're getting feedback from them in detail. So I think it's probably up to us to decide, number one, what the best approach would be. Zachariah, I don't know if you want to weigh in on that based on what we're, oh, here it is. Okay, maybe I can share this now.
Muted, Zachariah.
Okay.
Can you see this screen?
We can see your email.
Ah, okay. Well, you don't want to see the email.
I mean, I really like the competitive approach of, you know, requiring applications and, you know, a fairly well thought out plan for, you know, how a business is going to use those funds. So I think that for me, it's probably as simple as like, you know, just making sure that our application is, you know, as solid as possible. It includes, you know, all the right questions. And then depending on the response, or, you know, even ahead of a response, I mean, if it were me, I would say, hey, let's disperse this funding in batches, so that, you know, we, you know, don't just blow through it strictly by like, you know, first come, first serve basis. But, you know, this is exactly what the group is for. I mean, we have the ability to do two things, you know, first advise the city and county councils as to longer term economic development strategies and investments, and then also to serve as sort of the sounding board for dispersing these funds. Now that's on the business side. We have a fair amount of money in there for scholarships as well, and that's going to take probably a very different strategy for making the funds known, making the community aware of the funds.
Right, we have $65,833 that we've got allocated, and it was looking like we set aside $1,000 for the GAIN event. So I don't think it should be a first come, first serve. That's my opinion.
I guess, for what it's worth, my thinking on the, sort of competitive nature of the funds is that, to the degree that we can be thoughtful about, which business types this money goes to and, how it sets those businesses up for longer term success rather than getting them through just one more month of business. It's not a ton of money. We're not going to be able to achieve all of our goals of long-term economic diversification and development. And, there is a lot to say about just getting a business through another month. But, if all other things are equal, we're given the choice between two businesses and one is, the likelier of the two to, remain in existence and help, diversify the economy, then I think, that's the one I would go for.
Well, we can fund at $5,000 each. We could fund 13 different requests based on that amount. So is everybody in agreement that it should be 5,000, or do you want to keep it there?
I think for me, because I don't know anything about the mechanics of running a business. Well, not much. For me, I'm really curious about what people think. What's an amount that would have an impact in some of those areas that we've identified as priorities? I think, is that too much? Is that too little? It probably depends on the industry, but I'm really curious. I'm not sort of married to the idea of $5,000 as a number. What I really want to know is what kind of impact can be had. And I have no expertise in that area, so I would defer to those of you who do. Thank goodness you're here.
Maybe Lonnie can shed some light on that, since he's dealing with loans and businesses and he sees the needs.
Sorry, what was the question?
Well, as far as you're dealing with people requesting loans, like what needs do you see from where you are, as far as people? We said job creation, minority-owned businesses, COVID relief, recovery, or, somebody that can take the business and it's really going to make a difference in them moving the business forward, for a longer term, and maybe they can add on employees. I mean, you're kind of in the know since you're in the banking industry.
As far as what are clients looking for right now to grow their business?
Yes.
Really, a lot of it is just as of recently, I've started hearing a lot more people emphasizing year-round employees or trying to get a good, solid employee base. That's been the biggest thing. I think the whole COVID issue shook it up enough that a lot of these business owners are getting tired of training employees. So that's kind of been a big thing. I don't really know what else. I am hearing a lot of the shoulder season, promoting shoulder season, but I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Rob, what do you think?
Well, to the question of how much money is to impact and what would be noticeable, I think I'm guessing your survey, I can't remember if it has something about that has this for this, but I think you just want to make sure you're not giving this to, a large business that doesn't necessarily need it, I would think, right? That is doing sort of okay. So as a ratio of what their revenues are, their amount of employees, things like that. I would say it depends what our goals are, right? I mean, larger businesses obviously employ more people. I think a $5,000 grant would be less useful to them, it'd still be nice. But that's more likely to just end up in the owner's pocket or something. I don't know. I don't think we have, we don't have a ton of money. So I don't, I think having a maximum makes sense. I think Zachariah's experience with the $1,000 grants was, surprisingly good. That, it's a sign of businesses really appreciated it, even though it was a small amount. It's still like a check someone's handing you. So I think depending on if you get a lot of applications, then maybe it makes sense to try to, and they all seem somewhat worthy. Maybe it makes sense I'd rather have everyone get something than, then go just to 13. If you get in the first month, if you get, 10, then that's probably a sign there's going to be more. So maybe you want to give them a little less for each of them. It's more, we don't have a lot of money now to do this. And I think it's just another thing that makes it feel like a good small town. I think that people we're trying our best.
Mhm.
That would maximize the number of people we give it to.
Mhm.
I think that what you can do is you can certainly set up a criteria that they apply to. There are several examples you can do that. You can have people outside of government, quote unquote, rate and look at what in fact do they need and who's going to have the most impact for the $5,000, what they're doing. And you can contact the companies and find out additional information. I mean, there's systems set up to do all of this, right? So that we don't have to do it, other people can do it. It's part of their job. The other thing you can do too is you can take a look at somebody who's gone through the exact same thing that we want to go through and have done it on a bigger scale. I'm involved with Mountain Lands Association of Governments and with their revolving loan fund, and they have deployed about, I don't know, $22 million in grants to probably 150 businesses. And they've put together a criteria, a way to look at them, what they do, and they hope that they're going to have a reasonable result from that money that's going to make sense. They're going to track it. So people have systems in place, and you can duplicate those for tracking purposes. And you can set up your own criteria if you want for applications, and copy other people that have done it as well. And Mountain Lands has done a pretty good job. I know the people there pretty well. And so there's some things we can adapt that I think won't take a lot of time and that to do that. One of the things with trying to get a portfolio of businesses funded is that portfolio theory says that you're going to, over the long haul, do better than if you put it all on one deal, right? And if you could spread it out. And at 13 deals, that's not optimal. Better between 15 and 20, but it's not bad. And I think they have to build a case as to why they want it. And I think we have to have other things to help them so that if we give them money, it's a stepping stone to move into other things to get them additional funds, additional help, et cetera, of a system that's already out there. We just give them access to those capital markets. And we can do that. That's not as complicated as it sounds because they're already in place.
Hey, Elaine, real quick, Zachariah just
Yeah.
texted me his computer crashed. He's in the waiting room trying to get back in.
Oh, all right.
And Elaine, just one other thought, as you're thinking about prioritizing, if there is a lot of demand for these grants, which I think if we advertise them, I think there will be, if you're saying,
Yeah, we will. We'll put it out there in social media, and we'll put it out on, we'll do the Facebook, the Constant Contact.
Sure.
I'll work with the chamber. We'll do all of that.
Okay, so yeah, if you wanted, one thought for you to consider, if you want to narrow it down to, or prioritize, could be something like, it's like a spider plot is like what it is. So it's like, imagine like my hands here, like, and there's like the centers in the middle, and then there's like 9 or 10 different metrics going around like a spider web. And so, you know, if say there's like 10 things that we want to see in terms of like, you know, whether the business, you know, helps diversify the Moab economy, whether, you know, whatever those things are, you know, we have 10 attributes or something. I guess it'd be more of like just like a checkbox. Maybe you don't even need the spider plot, which is more of like 9 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 for each attribute. And then which has like the most surface area, essentially. It's probably like more effort that you need to do, but more just like, hey, there's like 6 things we care about. And these businesses check all 6, you know, like one could be, you know, minority owned, which is going to be, you know, low, but that'd be like one extra check than if someone doesn't have that. Or that'd be a way where it might be simple where you could do it. It wouldn't be as qualitative and you could give people some transparency into the process.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. But I'm sure you'll come up
I
with
like Rob's idea too.
decent. And if you want to have a subcommittee and you want like some of us to be like the Housing Relief Fund, for instance, there was a group of, you know, people that were part of that, and then they reviewed the applications and.
Right. Well, that's what I was hoping to do is if maybe what we can do is come up with a checklist that indicates the things that you're thinking of. And you could, if you want to send those to me, I'll put that together. And then they fill out their application. We see how many boxes they tick, get the score, and we have a committee of, say, 2 of you, if you'd like, to process those applications. So if anybody wants to volunteer, let me know. And then I think we go from there, and I agree with what Kelly said about, you know, all of those, you know, what is it going to do to help? Is it going to be something to help long term? And I think we should put a maximum just so people don't request, you know, 20,000, but say up to 5,000, and we can see how many applicants we get. Somebody might only need 3,000 or 2,000, whatever. But I think that's the approach, you know, to give everyone an opportunity to request the funding, and then we can go through the applications, go through the checklist, and then make a decision on who is going to get funded.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to help out if you need it. And I can, the other thought would be too, and someone chime in if they think this is a good idea or a bad idea. I mean, it might make sense to have just a minimum criteria and then to prorate the money. For instance, since it's a kind of a small amount, it's going to, you know, if we get 20 people coming in or something, it might make sense for kind of fairness and to avoid the chance for, because there isn't necessarily like a direct, we're all going to have different priorities for the kind of industries and things, you know, you want to see in Moab, or businesses you'd be interested in seeing or not seeing. You know, like some people will be interested in helping the, you know, ATV Hummer rentals, other people will not be, and so forth. So maybe it makes sense just to say, if you can show that your business has been affected in terms of like your revenue down versus year over year, if you have a few other categories, then you're eligible for a certain amount, you know, the funding, and then we're going to prorate it based on the number who are eligible. That's one other way we could do it.
Okay. Yeah. Does anyone else want to be on that committee besides Rob?
Sure, I'd be happy to be on it.
All right.
I would
Elaine?
also say, you know, we shouldn't just be looking at this as like helping businesses that are struggling, but also, you know, encouraging businesses that are on a growth trajectory.
Yeah, exactly.
Capital to be.
Yeah, I agree. I think
I agree with that. And based on this conversation, I think there's maybe some questions we can add to the application to kind of root those businesses out of the process. Like, you know, maybe some questions about where the businesses see themselves in the community in 5 years or 10 years.
I like that. I think it's really important to always have the lens of the impact to the community and I mean, I know it's hard to measure that, but I think we're a public entity. This money is public money. I think that it's important to have that as a piece of the pie. I like what you said, Jasmine.
Well,
Yeah,
these,
maybe we could split it
these
up.
are, I'm just going to quickly read through the application. It says the business legal name, the physical address, the mailing address, the principal contact, obviously. Then I own a registered business in Grant County or Moab City and have a business license as of January 1st, 2020 with the following, and they have to check it. They have to upload a copy of their business license. What is the current operation status of your business? You know, open, normal hours, reduced hours, temporary, whatever. Then as of March 1st, 2020, how many employees have worked for the business, including the owner? As of June 1st, 2020, how many employees, let's see here, is that the same question I asked? As of June 1st, how many employees work for the business, including the owner? So it's March and then June. My business is a franchise, yes or no? The date the business was established. Please provide a brief explanation of your business and intended use if given X amount of funding. What changes or challenges do you anticipate for the next 6 months? Check all that apply. Increased pricing, supplier changes, changes in operating practices, concern for business sustainability, significant loss of revenue, consumer client reduction, employee reduction, PPE equipment, or other. My business has received an emergency revolving loan fund, loan with the Association of Governments, yes or no. My business has received EIDL assistance, Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, yes or no. My business has received PPP assistance, yes or no. My business has received SBA assistance, yes or no. Has your business received any other CARES or COVID relief not listed? Yes or no, and other. If the business does not have a profit or loss report, please use the following template by copying and pasting the provided URL to make a copy so that they have a P&L. State the business.
Are you reading the entire survey to us?
I'm just reading you the questions.
We all have the survey. You don't have to read it to us.
Okay, so you're in agreement? I haven't gotten any feedback from anybody on the application. So does the application...
Did you send it out?
To you at this meeting. Apologize.
Yeah, okay. I would say my feedback on it, on the survey, is that it seemed like there might have, maybe there was a lot of yes, no questions, which is really good if you have like hundreds of responses or something. But maybe it would make sense to have a few more like text fields for people to just, you know, from going through the surveys that we did a month ago, where we got like 100 or whatever, or not a month ago, sorry, like in the beginning of COVID. The yes nos were like less interesting to me than when people said like, how is this affecting you? Or I would have more text.
Well, we can certainly elaborate on that and put a comment area in there at the question.
I think that the application is probably going to evolve a little bit as criteria are put together. That was my take on it when I read through it earlier, was that it was pretty generic, which makes sense. I think that as criteria are put together, that probably the questions will get honed in a little. And I agree with Rob that some space for people to elaborate will be very helpful for whoever's scoring.
The thing I was trying to avoid was several different applications. I think because, you know, rather than having 3 or 4 or 5, depending on the segment, if we have a solid application, and if we do put more information where they can put more text in there, that might suffice. But I don't want to make it so difficult. If we sort of simplify it, because the funds that we're giving out, you know, we're not giving out $100,000 or $500,000, and I don't want to make it too complicated when we go through the process, at least initially. That's my thought.
Yeah, I think the text fields are nice because we get lots of information. I mean, this start of this meeting, we were trying to say, what's the economic climate like? And I mean, we had some good tidbits, but it's not the greatest gossip, guys. We can get better information out there if we let people just explain it and say what's going on in their life and their businesses. So that'll be also useful for us to know.
Okay.
Elaine?
And I can't remember if the survey has information about that's catered to the growth businesses or new startups. Maybe just have like a separate section for that because, or maybe a separate survey, because some businesses are going to say this isn't relevant to me. I'm just starting up or something like that. And I agree with what you all said before earlier in the conversation that, we should try to not just help businesses that are struggling, but, help ones that are just starting out as well. So I think we can decide as a group what portion of the funds, maybe based on the amount of requests you get, Elaine, that maybe fall in those two buckets of existing business struggling versus, kind of new business that's one person that wants to do something.
Right.
My guess is you'll get a lot more existing businesses struggling than those new businesses. And then we can say 75% of the funds should go to, existing struggling businesses and 25% will go to the few with a limit of 5,000 or something like that.
Jasmine, did you have a comment?
Yeah, or a question. On number 27 on the application, we're looking for the primary owner's racial categories. Do we also want to have a question that has like, is your primary owner of the business a veteran or a senior or a woman, or a different question like that?
I think, yeah, I don't see why not. We can, we can do whatever we want with this application. That's why I, wanted your input. So sure, we can add a question like that.
So do these questions get a weight? I'm wondering what Rob was describing with what did you call it, a spider diagram or something? I'm wondering, I think in the interest of keeping it simple, I think the questions on the application should be relevant to whatever categories we're most interested in and maybe have some kind of weight. And from my 2 cents, I think that needs to be determined up front, at least for the initial round of screening or whatever. Maybe everyone who passes a certain number of points gets thrown into a more competitive thing or something, whatever. But I think knowing going in what the priorities are will not waste people's time for one thing, and also provide more transparency. I'm really nervous about saying we got money, we're going to give it away, but we don't know what the criteria are.
Yeah. As one of the members of this group that probably is not like officially like with a big job or anything like that, I can volunteer some time if you want another opinion on certain things, Elaine, or to incorporate some of these into the survey. I can do that. Or what we could do is just give everyone maybe like a day or 2 days before you send it out, and then we'll all email you with little tidbits and suggestions on the survey. But I'm sure you get a million things. So if you want, I could manage that, and people could send their comments.
That would be great. I would say, why don't we have everybody make their recommendation on this application? It can be changed, or we can do whatever we want with it. And if you want to send those to Rob, that's fine with me. Zechariah, how does that meet with you?
I think that's a fantastic strategy for our group. And, one last thing I would say is, let's start thinking about when we want to deploy this program.
Mm-hmm.
And then I could say, what I could envision is that, at our next meeting, we talk about the scholarship piece.
Mhm. Yep.
When is
And
the
maybe
when's the money gonna be? When do you think we'll get the money?
I sent the invoice last week. I'm not sure how long it takes to get the funds. I'm hoping within the next 10 days, but I can confirm that.
Oh wow, so pretty quick though. Pretty quick. Okay, so
I mean, I'm saying the money's there. It's just, you know, we invoice them, and I don't know how long. Have you had experience with that, Zechariah? What's the length of time once you invoice them and Gced processes the funds?
I would say, you know, a couple of weeks, few weeks.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll have it probably before the end of September.
great. So maybe let's shoot for you know, we'll try to get you know, I'll incorporate people send me you know, thoughts on the survey. It could be anything. I'll try to I'll build on what Elaine's already started, and then I'll send out a draft, you know, and shoot for, maybe we could have something to send out to everybody and call it a week from now. I don't see.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
It's just a survey with essentially text box and some yes or no's, and the harder part will be, you know, everyone. Well, I guess it won't be that hard, but we'll have to send it out to all the lists and everything like that, and make sure businesses know it exists. And
Elaine,
Okay.
is this something that we could, I mean, I just know as far as from banking perspective here, anytime we start gathering information on people's race or ethnicity, you're really opening yourself up to the risk of lawsuits if you don't abide by, or if you all of a sudden if someone can prove a bias against you. Is this something that maybe the county attorney could look at, or someone, just to make sure that we are covering our bases as far as
Sure.
any repercussions?
I sent this application over to her. I know she's been quite busy, but I think what we can do is, once Rob gets all of our input and draft something, I'm sure we can send it over to get her. I would send it to her and to Chris Baird just to make sure they were in agreement with what we're processing here. Yeah. Zechariah, have you ever had any, you know, situations occur over grant funding that you've given out? Muted.
There we go. I was trying to click it there a few times. No, but you know, dispersing money is more of a recent activity, and so there isn't a, you know, long history of looking at that issue. I mean, I would say, you know, let's ask the county attorney what language we should use.
Right. Okay.
I think that it's reasonable to say we're targeting, you know, certain types of businesses, and you know, that could include a minority-owned business or a female-owned business or anything like that. But it has to be worded properly, and
Right.
you know, I think Lonnie's considerations are very reasonable.
Absolutely. Yep.
Well,
Yeah.
they are, but I think having criteria, that is one of the big reasons that you have criteria, so that it doesn't come across as we're just like, you know, willy-nilly
Yeah.
who we want.
Just saying, oh boy, we like to give you the
Maybe
money.
that reviews the applications, not see who the actual, well, that won't work because they have to put in their business information, but
Yeah.
like if they could review criteria without knowing what business it came from.
Mhm.
oh, yeah, I think I don't. My gut tells me I don't like that idea, because I think might be hard for us to understand. Well, it's a possibility. One way we could also really reduce liability, if that is something we need to reduce, which I'm not convinced it is, would be to make our decisions or make the be very binarily based. Like, do you qualify? If you qualify, then, you know, based on these things, then you get a portion of the funds, and it's allocated pro rata based on how many people we divided up. That would really reduce risk. Kind of like, yeah, like making any kind of a standards thing. Like, I'm on the land trust and we're working through our CC&Rs right now and design standards. And, you know, we're changing the words that say, like, you know, our discretion to, like, does it have the right number of square feet and stories? And because otherwise you can be sued to say that you got rejected for arbitrary. It wasn't based on, you know, the actual things, like they have to have criteria. So, I mean, that'd be probably easier, but I don't know. That's just my quick thoughts. What does everyone else think about, do we need to deal? Well, I guess we can talk to the county attorney regardless. That's pretty easy to do.
Mhm. Yeah, we can do that. Okay. Cool. Okay.
So I think that we're probably too short on time to talk too much on, you know, longer term economic development stuff and the. I mean, we could tackle the education stipends or scholarships now if folks still have some steam, or we could put that off until the next one.
Does this time work for everyone for a meeting, or do you want it moved earlier in the day?
Time works for me. Running short on time here in the next 18 minutes. So.
Works for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Better than the
Okay.
other one.
All right, so
Yeah,
we could do it 3 to 5. Any particular, what is today? Is today Wednesday? I think it is.
Is Zachariah? My suggestion is that we kind of like call it today and focus people's effort on the survey, and then once we have that out the way and send that out, then we have to wait until we get responses back, and then we can focus on the other stuff.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that. I would also say, you know, for future meetings, you know, my preference is to keep them at an hour and try to keep them as focused as possible, rather than 2 hours. Very few, you know, it's tough to keep enough momentum going to warrant 2 hours.
So do you want to have another meeting later this month, like at the end of the month, or do we want to wait till so we can get,
I think, yeah, sort of end of September, beginning of October.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe do a doodle poll for the next meeting, like looking at that. Maybe the first week of October.
How does September 30th, Wednesday, look?
Yeah,
Should be fine.
we only need a quorum, so maybe you could just send out send out a doodle poll with a few different days or whatever if you want.
Okay.
Well, I think the next point of contact will be, let's do the survey. Let's have, everyone try to take a look at the survey, or you don't have to be, I'm going to look at it too, just if there are things you want to include or things you want me to take in consideration with the next draft of it. And then I'll send it around and, give people another day or so before we then send it out to everybody in like a week.
Okay. Cool. Okay. All right.
Zachariah, we can't hear you if you're. It says you're not muted though. Weird.
Yeah, he's not muted. That's strange.
You want to just text it to the group? Does that work?
All right. Do we we have a motion to end the meeting?
Yes. I make a motion to end the meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, meeting's ended. I'll send out the doodle poll.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.